Hi, my name is MK. I'm a 65-year-old Malaysian and I'm proud to be one. Um, at this juncture, like many Malaysians, I'm equally filled with awe, with despair, and with depression, watching our country being at the brink of collapse and the current state of affairs. Now, as a Malaysian, I feel obliged and I feel duty bound to express my views and my dissent and my opinions at the best to try and save our country. Do our bit. Now, with that, let's examine a couple of facts. Firstly, COVID. COVID is not an emergency, it never was. It's a health crisis. It's an epidemic which is not peculiar to just Malaysia, it's a global pandemic. I'm saying this because the whole world is fighting against COVID. And therefore, if we, Malaysia, needs help, all we have to do is ask, and we will have some kind of assistance to help us along. So the country need not suffer to the extent that we are currently suffering. Now, the reason why there is so much of social and economic devastation and destruction in this country, it is because of our current political instability. Actually, it is not COVID, but it is the mismanagement of COVID which has resulted in the amount of damage that we are all experiencing as Malaysians, both livelihood, and the loss of confidence. The flip-flop decisions of our current ruling coalition and their double standards and their practices, just like Sabah election, have led the numbers from a couple of hundreds to 21 thousands and I don't know, 300 over deaths. And how much more is it going to climb? So it is at a critical phase at this point where we as the Rakyat need to do something. So my opinion here is to call for an action. Let us do something. Now, let's look at the opposition. I would also like to say at this point that the current opposition was the government about 20 months ago. And it is the same old people, the members of parliament, the MPs of that time opposition which started the Sheraton move and brought in the current backdoor government. So what I'm trying to say is whether it's the ruling coalition or the opposition, the members of parliament seem to be completely detached from the reality and the welfare of the Rakyat. They all seem to be self-serving, self-assumed, power crazy and incompetent, selfish and corrupt to the extent to which they only want to project themselves and look at COVID as an opportunity to enrich themselves rather than to serve the Rakyat. Why I'm saying this? It is because whether it's the ruling coalition or the opposition, what we have is garbage. And what we pick from the garbage will be rubbish. Now, I'm not saying that there are no good politicians. There are probably good politicians, both sides. Number maybe 10%, but 10% is not enough to form the government. Okay, so my view at this point is we cannot afford to have a general election. There is no room to it. A small Sabah election has brought us to where we are. And therefore, a nationwide election, whether it is engineered through virtual voting or internet voting or whatever it is, I don't think it eliminates the risk of COVID becoming worse than what it is now. So, another point of note before we go to the next stage is it's really the current ruling coalition, the government has, you see, our country is one which is democratic, it has parliamentary democracy, and it's a constitutional monarchy. Okay, the current government has destroyed all democratic principles to whichever way they can. Until a point that a minority government sustains itself for more than 1.5 years. Okay. Now, when it comes to parliamentary democracy, it's practically nil. It's been reduced to zero because it's nothing more than a briefing session where the speaker tells everyone not to speak. Okay. The AG, as well as the bastion for legal affairs, completely outrolls or ramrolls the constitution or goes against the constitution. Now, the only thing that is left in a string, which is possibly our saving grace, is that we are a constitutional monarchy and we still have the monarch left. Probably it's the prudence and the smartness of our forefathers that they made this country into a constitutional monarchy. So we have one last attempt, one last opportunity to voice out our opinion to the king himself. Now, my suggestion is this: let the Agong intervene, let him relieve our current politicians as well as the ruling coalition. Just relieve them of their duties. Pick an interim government which is made up of CEOs, businessmen, and technocrats who will form an interim government for the time being, take us out of this mess of COVID. Once we have contained this epidemic, then let us look at a fresh elections where we can prudently pick our leaders and our representatives who will speak our voice in parliament and who will represent our rakyat. Now, there will be a lot of debate whether the king or Agong can or cannot do this and whether he is constitutionally allowed to do this. Now, my opinion at this point is we are in unprecedented waters. We are in grave danger of losing both our lives and livelihood. And the current state of political instability and the lack of a proper leader is a fact. Now, the Agong, as well as the country, the nation, the Malaysians, we all know this, and we owe it to ourselves for us to air our views to Agong, and Agong, in the best interest of the Rakyat, can do what is right for his people, for his subjects. Now, I believe that if all of us speak in one voice, our dissents and our views, and if we can communicate this to our king, I'm sure he will act on it the way we need. But I don't think my suggestion is any different from the suggestion that Mahathir is promoting on his Recovery Council. I'm just saying that a similar council could be possible without the politicians. And even if the politicians were being brought in, maybe a couple of the opposition as well as this, just to be within that Recovery Council, I'm fine. But I think Mahathir, our elderly statesperson, I think he needs to rest. We need younger people and we need a different perspective and somebody who is apolitical and who is not so self-centered, and somebody who really wants to serve the country and the rakyat to bring us out of this. Okay. Now, I think it's important for everyone, every Malaysian, to speak up. And if you like what I'm saying, please voice the same thing out there. We can talk with our neighbors, we can talk to our resident associations, we talk to all NGOs, and finally, the civil service. Please remember, civil service, you are not working for the politicians, you're working for the rakyat. Please do not police and bully the rakyat. Please stand with us. Stand with the rakyat. You are one of us. Your opinion is equally important. Please record your views. Let us all do this and save Malaysia. Thank you.